Hi, this is Josh.
This is Eric.
And this is Sean.
And welcome to this, the 7% Solution. Back again, ready to go through our Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes collection. And today, we're doing Sherlock Holmes in the Voice of Terror. So this movie was put out to Americans and the British in 1942. And it's the first of three stories that really go very deep into World War II. This one really is heavy World War II. And so will the next one. But this one, and as we go into this, I'm going to talk about something that I don't normally talk about, which is the direction of this movie. And it's just one of the best directed Sherlock Holmes out there, and I can't wait to talk through some of those things. Guys, did you watch this movie when you were kids, or when did you see this movie for the first time?
I thought it was known that I never knew these existed, never saw any of these ever in my life until this podcast came along.
Oh, sweet. So, again, guys, forgive me. It's been a long time since we've recorded one of these. So, I mean, a really long time. I don't know how many years it's been.
Like pre-COVID.
Nearly 7 years.
Yeah, it's something like 7 years, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So Eric, you're kind of a newbie, kind of, watching it almost for the first time.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know if I saw anything Sherlock Holmes visually. Like, probably young Sherlock Holmes in the 80s was probably the first Sherlock Holmes I saw on film or video.
Wow.
That doesn't count.
And Sean, did you watch this as a kid or as a young adult?
I never watched it as a kid. I seem to remember on PBS there was it Basil Rathbone, or was it the other guy? Help me on this. The guy that played him in the 80s. There's been
Jeremy Brett. Jeremy Brett put him in the 80s.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I've tried watching those when I was younger, but really didn't get into it. But I've read every single piece of Sherlock Holmes literature written by Arthur Conan Doyle.
Wow. So that's 56 stories, 56 short stories, and 4 novels.
Yeah.
That's the whole amount.
And the problem is, I read them when I was older, as in like a few years ago. So I don't have a really good memory of most of them. This story that we're going to watch today is not based on a Sherlock Holmes written story.
Yeah, how could it? It would be fantastical if it was.
Actually, we're going to see when we start this that it is based off of his last bow.
Okay.
But there's very little in the way of how it's based on the last bow. The only thing about the last bow that could be potentially part of this is that the last bow took place in the mid 1910s.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. So we can talk through that maybe. It's been a long time since I read it. So, but yes, you're right. So these were built as war stories essentially during World War II, and in fact they even indicate that. So let's wait until we get there, because they have to admit that it is a modern Sherlock Holmes, kind of like the Sherlock that we saw by Stephen Moffat. What is it, like almost a decade ago?
Yeah, I don't like thinking about that.
No, but the difference is the sameness is not the difference. Is that you're bringing a modern Sherlock Holmes, like with cell phones and stuff like that. So that's what this was. This was bringing Sherlock Holmes to a modern audience, and having him live in the World War II time frame.
Okay.
So that's where Stephen Moffat got the idea. It's brilliant.
I'm going to hold my opinions about that until we hit play.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else, Eric, that you wanted to talk about before we press play here?
I just wanted to mention and bring up that obviously it's been a while since we've done one of these, and for reasons. But I just wanted to shout out to Zarban out there on the internet. I brought him up before on other podcasts we do, but you can find Zarban if you Google like Zarban commentaries or something. Zarban has like run this website since at least 10 years ago.
Yep.
And Zarban was like one of the first people out there in the internet world to really get onto the Shaken Not Stirs
Mhm.
commentaries. And Zarban runs a website that's like an aggregate of podcast commentaries across the board, like coming from all different feeds. And he likes to like catalog and list them all for whatever you're looking for, like Star Wars commentaries or whatever it is. And so Zarban's always, and it wasn't until some years ago I discovered he had written like these really interesting descriptions of individual Shaken Not Stirs that I found very entertaining. Anyway, I hadn't heard from Zarban for years since we haven't been doing commentaries or anything like that. And the Hound of Baskervilles, the first in this series that we recorded, it got published relatively recently on the Progneg feed. And who noticed right away but Zarban? Like noticed right away and already posted links to Hounds of Baskerville.
That's awesome.
And so I just shout out to Zarban. Zarban is like our biggest fan from far, far away. That's kudos.
No, that's a cool shout out because I did notice, and he aggregates it. It's so beautiful. Yeah, guys, check it out on YouTube. He's also on YouTube, and he does have the podcast too, which is great. And it's nice to go back and listen to some of the stuff we did, guys, 10, 15 years ago. It's crazy. Anyway, you want to get started?
Yes, please.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so I trust you guys have your legally purchased physical media for the complete Sherlock Holmes collection
Yes.
at the ready.
I mean, I do.
Absolutely.
I'm on disc 1, and it's the last one on the list, Sherlock Holmes and the Voice of Terror.
Uh-huh.
And we're gonna start this in 3, 2, 1, play. I love it. Did it work? Did it go fast?
It came up faster that time.
So this old Universal thing, I wonder how they built this thing. It's probably, those things are probably...
That's CGI.
And then we have Universal Presents with Smoke.
Yeah, so this is the first Universal release.
It is. It's the first Universal release, and it's this beginning with the music, which you probably heard as we started this. This is where this music comes from, and they're kind of walking in the fog here.
Yeah, because of course Fox had the rights, and I don't know why Fox didn't continue making more themselves, but Universal wanted to get in, and originally the estate of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wouldn't authorize Universal to produce more Sherlock films because they didn't like the idea of changing the. They didn't like the idea of new texts or new stories.
By the way, guys, gowns by Vera West. She does all the gowns for the entire Sherlock Holmes series.
I was wondering.
John Rawlins. This is the only one directed by John Rawlins. Okay.
Of the Universal, yeah.
All right. So what we were talking about, like this is the the beginning of Star Wars or whatever, beginning of Deadly Assassin, where they tell you what that Sherlock Holmes is ageless. And it just shows that this is the present day being 1942.
So you're telling me that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle didn't actually write about World War II?
No, he was quite dead before World War II. Arthur Conan Doyle died in 1930.
Wait, he did? He's dead?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he died a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. I actually like this montage.
Yeah, this is kind of a new way of kind of setting up the story, which is mostly about like propaganda on the radio that was way too real.
Yeah, you say propaganda like it's kind of a bad thing, like Nazi propaganda, but it's quite the opposite. This is stuff that was put up by the UK or the US on radio about how we have to keep up our morale, support our troops, yada yada yada.
But this is not that. This is somebody apparently broadcasting from Zeisborg.
Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry.
In Germany.
Well, yeah. In the context of the story, yeah, this is certainly Nazi propaganda.
Look at this. A freaking train comes off the tracks.
Yeah,
little topical.
All 40 inches of it.
Hey, you know what? It's not bad. Not bad for 1942. Again, like radio was like it was not not new, but it was definitely how people gained their information in 42, especially in England.
Yeah. Hey, we've all watched Downton Abbey. We know.
Yeah, sir. We've seen Downton Abbey. Don't. Yeah.
The wireless, as they called it in England at that time.
Yeah, the wireless intelligence inner council. This is like, I guess this would be Homeland Security.
This is where people with scars on their face go to meet.
Yeah. Look at this. Look at that view with the window. It's just
yes, absolutely.
It's beautiful. I mean, I'm just going to point out, like, because this particular director is, as I think I mentioned this, probably the best director of any of the Sherlock Holmes films. It's a shame that he didn't direct anymore, because it really is all atmosphere here.
It reminds me very much. There's an old movie from the 30s called. It's based on the island of Dr. Moreau, Island of Lost Souls, and this lighting where we have this lattice type work, over these guys reminds me very, very much of that movie. I should have looked up the director's work, and I'm a bad podcaster. I'm sorry.
And if you know anything about classic film, you can kind of imagine in your head after looking at the shot, the lighting in this scene, and you can imagine how this would morph into the things we'd see in the 60s with the different layers, like in Bond movies, or of course the classic War Council in Doctor Strangelove, because of the designs of the sets in those Bond movies and Doctor Strangelove, you get these weird like spherical things blocking the lighting and creating these strange shadows. So this would be like a precursor to all that stuff that would come later.
I can't help but think about the ship, and what was the James Bond movie where the ship was half in the water? It was
The Spy Who Loved Me, I think?
Yeah, Spy Who Loved Me. Yep.
Oh yeah, that's right, the tilted ship.
Yeah.
Yes, that was cool.
By the way, this is Watson just used a nickname for the guy that he talked to. It's not the last time you'll see a nickname that Watson had in school in a Sherlock Holmes movie. It's weird that would happen more than once.
Now, of course, it's been years since I watched The Hound of the Baskervilles, The Hounds of Baskerville. Anyway, for this podcast, so my memory is hazy. But upon watching this now, it seems like in modern garb that Basil Rathbone looks a lot younger to me in this feature.
You know what's wild is that Nigel Bruce is actually younger than Basil Rathbone.
Yeah,
but you wouldn't know that by looking at them.
Yeah, I've got a complaint. What's the deal with the Basil Rathbone's hair in this? Because
okay, yes, that's a great question.
I can't stand it. It's like I feel like I'm like the makeup person behind the. Like, let me just comb your hair before.
Why? I like it. What's going on,
sir?
It doesn't look like Sherlock Holmes, really.
No, it doesn't look like Sherlock Holmes, and I think that's the point.
But yes, so what they wanted to do was give him a quotation fingers modern look to his hair.
It looks like Benedict Cumberbatch.
By the way, the guy in the middle, Henry Daniell, he was in several Sherlock Holmes movies. He's one of the they had a group of actors that were in many of these movies. Even the guy in the short guy right there, he was in a few as well.
What's his nose in Columbo that we watched?
I don't know what he's talking about.
This is Olaf Hitton, I think his name is. Is it Olaf Hitton?
The guy who was running the company that was making the ads in the Columbo.
The guy that was killed, the victim. Okay.
No, the guy who was the killer, and he's famous. Like it was like his third time in Columbo.
Robert Culp.
Yes, thank you.
The short guy.
What?
You're probably thinking of somebody else.
I thought Culp was the tall guy.
Culp is a tall guy.
Yeah, exactly. He was the killer.
I don't know. I'm gonna have some.
Culp was the killer, but he was famous for playing multiple roles throughout Columbo.
Yeah.
So I was comparing him to Mr. Leslie here, or not Leslie.
Oh, okay, okay. One thing that I was really impressed with, and I'm sorry, Josh, I know you're very, but the ties and how they tie their tie. Look at Basil Rathbone's tie and how
Yep.
short and fit the knot is, and it rises off the shirt. It's just the perfect tie.
Yeah,
And
it's a good point, Sean. Like, it's weird how between the 40s and the 90s, how ties changed.
Oh, many
yeah,
changes in that span of time.
I mean, all their suits look like they're like a lot of double-breasted numbers. This guy's in his 1920s outfit.
mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, some of them are dressed like in like black tie, or some of them are dressed in more formal wear, like Watson looks sort of like, or not Watson. Well, no, Watson has he has like the tuxedo style collar.
Yeah, he does. He does. Like, that's almost aged for the time, even, because Holmes is wearing a modern suit at the time.
Yeah, and then this guy's wearing like black tie right here.
Yeah, this guy is like, it's like he really was. He cut his teeth in the 1920s, so he looks like he's from the 1920s, and so does Watson here. And you're right, the hair. I mean, he has to get that coiffed, man.
I can't stand it.
Holmes could, Sean, you got a good point. Like, it really put me off when I first watched this. And again, I first watched this when I was 13 or 14. But, like, to me, I don't think Holmes would have been that worried about how his hair looked. He'd just pull it back.
Okay, I get that, but the rest of him suggests a man of style and perfection. The way his tie is tied, he's got his cane over his arm. He's got a hat that he's carrying around. Like, he truly is dressed like a man of perfection, like you know what I mean.
Yeah, I totally do.
But the hair does not match with that. And I dare say they come as a couple, not a literal couple, but Watson is the exact opposite. And I know that Watson and Holmes aren't supposed to be the same. Here's this cute thing.
This woman here, she is the primary character in Woman in Green.
Oh.
And she's playing just a driver here, but she was the Woman in Green, who's actually in purple, but that's a long story.
I thought she was going to be a double crosser. I thought she was going to be a mole of some type, the way she was introduced into the movie.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, I grant you. That they would first have a woman driver.
Oh, I just had a thought about that in real time, because I was going to make that same point just now. But I wonder if there's any correlation to like what was going on in the United States during World War II, which is maybe so many men were drafted into the military that
good point.
Perhaps you had like women drivers for the first time.
Okay, guys, I love this scene here. First with Watson cleaning his gun, and we're going to see Holmes, who is now going to be studying the wavelengths coming out of a radio. Huh. This is 1942, guys, okay? And they're listening to Beethoven's Fifth.
Uh-huh.
And he's got this machine here that looks at the wavelengths. And basically what he's trying to figure out is this a live broadcast or is this recorded? And so, like, this is, I mean, it's the level of technology here for 1942 is just absolutely incredible. And I love the way it is. And again, we can't hear it because we're watching it here. But Beethoven's Fifth on top of this, it just sets the mood so beautifully.
Now, I do like this bit of deductive reasoning that you're describing that's going on screen right now. But I want to say some stuff that happened in the previous scene when Sherlock first arrives, and a lot of the guys are skeptical about his deductive abilities and whatnot, and he right off the bat, to kind of like prove his bona fides, he starts talking about, oh, I could tell that your opinion on this is this because you dug in your heels, and there's like literally like those heel marks into the carpet, and the other guy had the old Sherlock one with the color of the mud on his boots or whatever.
Right.
Some of his amazing deductions in this particular movie, especially right the one with the heels, I'm just saying my opinion that some of them felt a bit reaching to me.
I'm gonna agree.
You're gonna find that to be the case. I think the reason why they put it in the movie is because what we wanted to do is prove that Sherlock Holmes can see things. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stop myself here. Look at the direction here. Like, just these close-ups that they're doing is so... you don't see this in the rest of the films. You just don't see it. There's going to be more here. Look at this. Just the way this is structured here is so beautiful. Because it's close up, and then the view of the door opening, and then you see the guy with the knife in his back.
Now, I'm curious if, because I obviously have not seen any of the films that come after this, except perhaps Spider-Woman, which I don't remember. But, so I'm curious if maybe they put more effort into this one because it was the first Universal, and because there's so many of these in a short period of time of production, did they maybe become like a little, what do you call it? Assembly line?
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Is that
Like,
what happened perhaps with like later ones?
you know what? That's a really good point. It is likely that that's the case. They put a lot of effort into this film. This film was much more like, we really have to make a splash. By the way, I just want to finish what I was saying because you were talking about what Sherlock Holmes did to do all his little deductions while they was in front of everybody and so on. I think that they wanted to set him up there because it really felt like it wasn't that people didn't know who Holmes was. They all knew, but they just didn't think that this was the right job or the right person to do this job. And all he did by doing those things is show that he can work in this type of atmosphere. Especially when he hears about the guy who lost his son on the train, right? Like, it went from I don't want this guy in here because he's histrionics to we need to use his brain.
But by the way, this deduction that just happened with the knife, that was another one that was a bit nuts to me. About like just analyzing like the depth and the angle to figure out the height and the distance of like the perpetrator. It's a bit nuts.
That's not a thing. Yeah, I agree with Eric there.
I give it license because Sherlock Holmes is not a real person. So
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, yeah, that's is it not okay. All right.
guys, look at this. Look at this scene where it's in the dark. You can feel the atmosphere here. It just does not feel right. You're feeling that Miss Grandis, like as you said, Eric, might have been. But I mean, what you don't know is that she was told to watch them at all times.
The guy who was in the shadows just now with the trench coat, he kind of looked like Ralph Fiennes or Ralph Fiennes.
Sir, Ray Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes.
This is still a free country. I mean, can you hear like the kind of like anti-Nazi kind of approach?
Yes.
Yeah.
I in fact, yeah, we hear it the first time here, and then we hear it all throughout
Yes.
the rest of the film.
It's very rah-rah.
Yeah,
it's we have to come together kind of thing when Kitty does her speech, which we're not there yet, but the atmosphere here is incredible.
Obviously, this was literally produced during World War II, so yeah,
Mhm.
of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this was made in the 30s or the 50s. Like it's literally 42.
Yep.
I think it's very interesting. It's like I have not seen any films like this that were made during World War One, even though that was a big, huge thing.
Well, I mean, there weren't too many talkies before World War One.
Yeah, I realize that, and there was only like one film I can think of that was produced that was highly acclaimed shortly after World War One.
More knife throwers, like they're putting that the Nazis are knife throwers. no one in the world is safe now, Watson. It's just that I love that kind of. It just like I know you feel like you're in danger, but we're all in danger right now. I just love that.
I'm gonna be the poo pooer. What would you call that? Just like
The poo
I don't
pooer.
know.
That's fine. Poo pooer is
Edith
fine.
Nancy.
Okay, I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say then. Is that I appreciate what you're saying, Josh, especially the scene with the staircase here. Look at that lighting,
Mm-hmm.
the cinematography director or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that aspect of it, but I don't really. I shouldn't say appreciate. I don't really get or I think no, I know how I'm going to say it. I think all the rah rah, anti-Nazi stuff is very dated. This scene here in the bar looks like it's directly from Casablanca.
Which was the same year, by the way.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know who copied who, but I'll go with it. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
It's a lot of the style at the time in
I
Hollywood.
like it. I like it. I love the lighting here.
No, it's like a 1930s Universal monster movie, like Frankenstein or Bride of
Yes,
Frankenstein.
yes, and apparently there's a lot of associations between those productions and this.
By the way, this guy who's coming over, who's kind of scary, he's in a couple other Sherlock Holmes films. Played Captain Simpson in House of Fear. He was also in Pearl of Death. It's so funny because he's facing these sort of fake dangers, kind of like the guy, who meets up with them and it doesn't allow him to, says, you're not welcome in these parts or whatever. But all of these little things, like, just set the mood. Like, everybody's kind of on edge.
Oh, we even got Holmes smoking a cigarette instead of his pipe.
Yeah, he smokes a lot of cigarettes,
Yeah.
and yeah, this is
Objection, sir, objection. And Watson pulling a gun or about to pull a
you.
gun.
You told me. Who told you that I knifed that guy? You did.
Sean, you mentioned, of course, the paranoia to the Nazi thing. Wouldn't this be the equivalent of like the 1980s like Cold War Russian stuff that was like in everything that we all experienced?
Yes.
I mean, I guess it doesn't date well for young people watching the Cold War stuff, but how could it be any other way? Is what it seems like to me.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? And when you say how can it be any other way, we're not watching CSI here. Like 1930s CSI. We're watching Sherlock Holmes. And I feel that for lack of a better term, rah rah, whatever, I think it seems oddly placed within a Sherlock Holmes story. I'm just going to say that.
Well, I mean,
And
it's supposed to be for the modern audience, right?
I
At the
know,
time.
I know, I know. I realize that. That's cool. And that's what's made Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch and Stephen Moffat's show so popular, despite how later on. I get that, but maybe I'm just grouping these films together and thinking they should all be like the 1800s.
Yeah, it's not like the beginning was like the first two films
Yeah.
were definitely 1800s, but when it moved over to Universal, they took the war and by the way, they didn't stay with this. Okay, for the next like 2 or 3 films, look at the close up. By the way, look at these close ups. You never see close ups like this again in these stories. But for the next like 2 or 3 films, you're going to see a lot of World War II based stuff. Once they get to like 1944 or something, like it starts to go into other things. I mean, again, like there are like war heroes that are convalescing in one episode, and then it just completely goes into just modern Sherlock Holmes, nothing to do with war at all.
I did not
And
know that.
by the way, this woman her name is Evelyn Ankers. She was a B film actress at the time. Beautiful close up of her right there. She was in a few Sherlock Holmes as well. She plays in Pearl of Death as well as Naomi Drake, and she's just got great range because Oh God, that's a great line. Cutthroats of the world. Menace us all. Some of these lines are just spectacular. This is your pep talk that started with the rah, that ended up with the rah piece, right?
Yeah. This scene is pretty, and it's pretty. I will admit that, but it is a little bit like in Casablanca when they get the French people to la 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 la
Mm-hmm.
la 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 over the Germans,
Yeah,
the
I mean, it
Nazis.
must be like again, like it's so weird. It's the same year, so it's like
Yeah, Casablanca came out 2 months later, apparently. Sean, are you not a fan of Casablanca, Sean?
I am not a fan of Casablanca.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
really.
I think it's
I love that
Oh,
movie.
I do too.
I think it's a little bit overblown. I don't get the romance bit. I just,
Okay.
yeah. And this scene, I'm totally on board with Josh about this. Look at this scene here. She's going from table to table, asking each person,
Yep,
and she's basically, she looks like a street girl. She looks like
and she
a
is.
sex worker. You know.
Yeah, and I don't know if she's a sex worker, but she's definitely like a criminal.
Oh yeah.
And like everybody in that room is, is dark and shady,
Yeah, they've even
right?
got an Asian guy in there. But they've got look at the Dutch angle. That's not quite as severe as in like 1960s Batman, but when they have a, did you notice that?
Yeah,
1960s Batman?
What did I say?
1960s?
Yeah, 1960s Batman.
I mean, by the way, she's
I don't remember. I didn't realize they had Dutch angles there.
she's 1942 sexy, right?
Yeah. Wait, hold on. I have to back up to what, because I can't. The OCD in me. Batman from the 1960s. Whenever they would show the villains later, that was the definition of Dutch angle, basically. Did you ever notice that?
Oh, you just remember the series a lot better than I do. Is all.
Okay, that's not bad.
Also, we have. Sorry, I'm going on the movie again. We have
It's okay because we're doing a.
a woman who is a leader here,
Yes.
and is driving a group of people to get together to help this.
Yes.
And again, 1942.
Oh yeah.
I just think that's spectacular.
Well,
that's just
from doing Best Picture podcast with Sean, and then some of the 1001 movies, I started noticing real quick that there's been strong women throughout the entire history of film. Apparently, just nobody talks about it anymore. It's all forgotten.
No, they just assume that it's not the case.
There's plenty to be found. And I just wanted to say on the last scene that we left, the last shot we saw of the room, because of the arch and the lighting that we've been talking about, it looked like Jabba's lair, like in Return of the Jedi. Like it really did in a good way. I think that's kind of cool.
Oh, look how Watson, by the way, here, Watson is examining this wound, and he's not examining it like a doctor would.
He's like, I think it's a sticker.
What's he doing with his finger there? I don't understand.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna just
a fake tattoo.
Let me stick my finger into the wound, and
he should lick it.
That's pretty much the extent of what Watson's going to do in this story. By the way, he doesn't.
No, I mean he's there just to be the friend, and that's it. Like another person to talk to.
I like that their sound monitor is like from Back to the Future.
Yeah, no shit. This thing is cool.
I need a bigger one. Bigger.
That's a tweeter right there. You see the tweeter on that thing?
Freaking humongous. The biggest damn radio they could possibly find.
The doors in this room are opulent. Like,
oh, don't get started on the whole patting on the door. That's an old Shaken Not Stirred reference.
Oh God, look at this.
Oh my God,
that's file footage.
My son's model's on fire.
You know, I think that guys, filmmakers, guys, I think that might be a little extreme. I don't think the war was really like that in London, at least for the most part.
No, it was. It totally was, dude. They were getting bombed every day.
They were getting bombed every day. There were parts of London getting bombed, but it's like, oh, let's look outside. There's buildings burning down right across the street.
All right,
I
so
mean,
this is for the story, okay? So
I know.
Well, wait, I missed it though. Was this from bombing or was this from like sabotage? The building on fire.
it's unclear. It's
'Cause
unclear.
if it was bombing, the only thing I would say is that they should have been in a bunker. They wouldn't just be chillaxing on the balcony if it was a bombing.
They were watching Netflix and just came out in their balcony.
Yeah, and Holmes, he's the last one to leave the balcony. He's like, I'm going to think about this for a little while.
He's got an interesting suit on right here. Like he had like kind of the double breasted number earlier, and now he's got like sort of this I don't know, like wool coat or something.
Yeah, it almost seems like like a multi-purpose undercoat deal. I'm obviously not an expert on 40s fashion, but it seems like it's an overcoat you'd wear if you didn't have an overcoat.
All I can think of is I'm 47 years old, I'm 10 pounds overweight, and my God, aren't they hot?
Oh, Sean.
Wait, do you mean like hot or hot?
No, hot, like temperature-wise.
Oh, okay. It went both ways.
Yeah, they are. I'm thinking that. Yeah, it kind of went both ways to me too, and I kind of laughed at both options. But the interesting thing is, for me, I'm like looking at these guys. Like, I'm glad I didn't grow up in this time, because if I had to wear that tie every freaking day, that would drive me insane.
Oh, I would have loved it. When I was physically more fit, I loved dressing up for work or whatever.
No,
or for
that wears off.
Yeah, I dress up in a t-shirt and shorts now for work. So
yeah,
basically,
that the whole dressing up thing that wears off really quick. In fact, I knew somebody, my partner used to work for the Mississippi Farm Bureau, and they required you, and this was in like 2000. They required you to wear a suit and tie to work every single fucking.
That was the thing. That was the thing back in the day.
Absolutely. No, I love formal dress. Again, if I had the physicality to pull it off, I would still dress that way.
That was the thing when my grandpa worked for Bell and Howell when he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is in the 1950s and 60s. But nowadays, I
work in tech, so we don't care.
Sean knows I've been, being bombarded on social media with seeing like old film footage, like not from films, like just like like documentary on the spot type film footage. And there's a great one I saw recently, and it was something like Penn Station, and it was just a cameras just set up, just filming the public, doing their thing, and it was circa 1940s, and everyone looked just like this. They were all everyday people just doing their everyday things. They all could have just been cast in a movie. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't have to go to wardrobe or anything. And the fact that that's just general public, like, oh yeah, I would love to be in that world. I would, where real life would actually look like the movies.
Oh, by the way, this is the comedy part. Like, they're all freaking talking about them, and Watson leaves his freaking umbrella as his cane. That is a giant door. I've never seen a door that big, by the way.
Yeah, it's because it's a studio. Studio set.
Again, we are atmosphere really key here.
Yes, I agree.
No doubt.
Walking sticks, everything. The one thing, we're not quite there yet, but the light in the walking stick, really, it's like one of those lights that's a button that you press.
Yeah. It's Sherlock Holmes. He has a trick stick.
Sir, no.
So to speak.
Batman has a trick stick. Sherlock Holmes has a button-up coat, a hat, and a pipe, maybe, but not a trick stick.
Well, he had a stick that actually it had brandy in it and everything.
Oh, you're just saying that because you want me to like the trick stick. Oh, it's got brandy in it. Yeah,
I do. I want you to like the trick stick.
But this is very handsome cinematography. Look at the slant through the.
Yep.
These two guys are talking.
It's beautiful.
This is worthy. It really is looking good in the neighborhood.
By the way, this guy who plays Lloyd, he played Moriarty in The Woman in Green. There's like 4 actors that play Moriarty in this series. It's so funny.
So another true fact about this movie
is a stick.
So, according to Wikipedia, the detective genre was really, really big in Hollywood in the 30s and 40s. But that being said, this was Universal Pictures' first real detective movie of any sort. And that just seems like a weird and curious fact. They had mystery movies before this, but they never had a true detective movie until this one.
Well, that's because, listen, this is why Universal bought the series. Is because like this was really in vogue at the time, and they could bang out these movies in minutes. Like they just bang them out.
Mm-hmm.
And they were huge sellers. I mean, people were going to theaters to watch these movies.
And
the only reason it didn't go beyond 1946 is because Basil Rathbone was done.
What other mystery movies did they have at this time? Was it Charlie Chan?
The Thin Man.
The Thin Man? Oh.
Yeah, Charlie Chan is another one. The other was Mr. Moto.
I'm sorry, what?
Mr. Moto was the other one. Peter Lorre.
Really?
Yeah.
Eric's looking it up. I can hear it. The clacking of the keys. I feel like I have heard of that before, but Charlie Chan, I have to look that up. I have to look at some Charlie Chan movies.
Look at this. Look at this. Freaking look at the lighting here, guys. This is just sick lighting right here.
That is really difficult to do. Like if you were,
it is.
Given like 2023 cameras, like, it's really difficult to do.
This is incredible. Look at that shot.
You can see his face, but you can't really see it. Like he looks like kind of like a ghost. Obviously, you can see the hand with the gun.
All you can see is the arm and the hand and the gun.
Yeah. That's really difficult. Trust me, folks. That's really. I went to film school, and they would show us like a picture or a portrait or something or a still life, and say recreate this using lights and camera, and it would be really hard. And I do sometimes wonder how these guys did it back in the day.
Well, I would imagine too, like, when it comes to older films like this generation of film, you have to think that, they're just 20 years or so since they transitioned away from actual live theater. And so there was probably like an easier transition of taking like the lighting skills they had from traditional theater and just bringing them over to film at that time. You know what I mean? So that's probably like how these guys cut their teeth on lighting, was on the actual stage where these techniques already existed, and then kind of brought it over to the film side.
But in this case, as Josh just mentioned, they would just take these movies out. They would produce them like, let's do one every month or every 2 months, whatever. They didn't have time to make really artful cinematography or lighting like this, yet they still did it. And I kind of agree with you, Eric, that maybe they just get Greg Toland or whatever, it just got off of.
Well, I hate to get into Star Trek for a second.
Oh, geez, here we go. All right, I'm sitting back.
I haven't even made one Doctor Who reference.
I don't want to derail the podcast,
Yeah,
but
really?
it's
Yeah,
germane to what we're talking about.
There we go.
Because on our Star Trek podcast, especially when you watch, 60s Star Trek TOS, and you go, wow, it's cool how they do all this lighting. And I had mentioned recently how it's funny to me how television in the 60s was mimicking like movies of the 40s and the 50s in terms of lighting. And it's just funny to me how that was kind of normal on television in the 60s, doing all these shadows and things. And then to relate it to modern times, how you say things are so different now, there's a great example of this for people who are into Star Trek, like the current stuff. There's this show, Strange New Worlds, not important, but in the season finale of that show that came out last year, or actually, sorry, yeah, last year, they did this one episode where they did the lighting specifically to evoke the 60s and this style that we're talking. And it was so cool to watch a modern episode of something that was trying to do this throwback lighting. And I was like, why couldn't every episode be like this? Because it's so amazing. But it's probably for the reason you just said. Like, no one has the time for all that. But it's cool to watch. It was something modern that was trying to emulate the old style. Very cool.
All right, so Holmes let him get away on purpose.
Right. And by the way, I'm just gonna say I don't have an issue watching classic movies, obviously, or black and white movies. I watch them all the time. For some reason, I was struggling with this movie when I was watching it
Yeah.
earlier today. Like my attention span, I don't know why I was struggling,
Yeah.
and I was not appreciating the lighting earlier today the way we are now. You know, that maybe would have drew me in a little bit more. And I, I, I had no possibility of figuring out who the killer was until it was revealed.
Oh, really?
I had no freaking clue at all. I didn't have a suspect or anybody.
Oh, they did a really good job on that here.
I knew instinctually from the very beginning that I knew instinctually it'd be someone in the room. You didn't have to tell me that. That much I knew. But as far as sussing out who it was, not a clue.
Well, they set it up so that you were really focusing on this guy Mead.
Yeah, and I knew that was a red herring. Okay, you know.
But like the thing about Mead is that, well, wait a minute. So this guy's name is Thomas Gomez. He also played Dr. Watson on stage, believe it or not.
Really?
This guy, yeah, he did. But you know, he had this kind of look to him that really, you know, felt Nazi for, you know,
Yeah.
for the regular viewer. This is a really
Eh.
interesting. This is a really interesting idea, is to get Kitty to bring herself into his life, and it just is just a normal person, right? Not even like not a hero, just a normal person. And it shows her strength to be able to do something like this, knowing what she was getting into. It's just, can you imagine the 1942 audience and how they would react to somebody like Kitty?
I just think it's crazy that I didn't realize till you mentioned his name was Gomez. Like I would not have figured this guy as being Latino. This actor in this movie.
Yeah, and he looks, dare I say, kind of dark for a Nazi.
Well, no, but he looks, well, maybe like Italian complex. He looks Italianish to me. Or oh my god, who's the famous '70s actor who was bald and he played
Telly Savalas?
Yes, I think.
You said bald. I just automatically went to Telly Savalas.
He gives me that kind of vibe. He gives me a little Terry Savalas or whoever played Scarface in the 30s version of Scarface kind of vibe.
That would be God, what's that guy's name? I can see him.
Where's Telly Savalas from? That's my next question.
This is an interesting shot right here, you guys, where she's sitting down there.
Now I'm gonna pull it back. You're right. You know, shots. There is a scene, not a scene, but a shot a little bit while he's pouring her a drink, where for some reason the light seems to be cast on the drinks, and his face while he's talking is cast in complete darkness. So, you know, I'm just gonna say I'm being critical here, but that's our job doing these commentaries and such.
All right. So, by the way, we are talking through individual assassination attempts on the people in the inner council there, and so that's to throw shade on anybody who's actually in the inner council, who might have been involved. And we saw, you know, obviously we saw the Sir Evan attempted assassination with Dr. Watson doing his best doctor stuff. So we're supposed to believe that they're all kind of a target. That's a Persian slipper, by the way, which is in every, you know, when Sherlock Holmes is grabbing his tobacco, it's always in a Persian slipper.
There he is smoking his pipe.
I didn't know that.
I must say, sir, one who smokes a pipe does not smoke cigarettes. Just gonna say.
Well, it is the 1940s. He'll smoke whatever, except for except for what's illegal. They're even having this discussion. Like, who, you know, Barham brought you into the case. So obviously it's not him.
Look at the background of the scene for a second, and this is why I am with the hair, but not with the hair. And look at the books and how scattered they are. Um, I personally believe that somebody who has a very logical and orderly mind does not organize his books like that.
So Sean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear from the literature that Holmes was not an organized person.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And also like that his lodgings were not exactly lodgings of somebody who made a lot of money.
Yeah, and also I'm not sure if the Holmes character, and obviously I'm no expert on the Holmes character at all, but I'm not sure if he's really the logical type as much as he's like the genius type.
I don't know.
I think he's more genius than logical. Again, I say this as a complete amateur on the subject of Sherlock Holmes.
And I don't think that you have to be wealthy to organize your books. Or maybe that's just me watching this and thinking.
No, he's just he has other concerns.
Yeah,
He just it's not a concern of his.
it also reminds me of the interpretation of the Robert Downey Jr. version, where he was also all over the place. I mean, disorganized.
I mean, in the Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which was a 1970 film with Robert Stevens playing Sherlock Holmes, he ripped Mrs. Hudson a new one for dusting his desk, and Mrs. Hudson said, "Well, the dust in some scenarios was like this thick," and she made like an inch in her fingers. And he said, "I can date that to March 1883." Which is a great line. It's just like, it's not his concern. I think, Eric, to your question, I might have said genius versus logical.
Okay, that's just been my interpretation from the little Holmes I've imbibed up to this point.
I mean, again, like Benedict Cumberbatch falls into that category in his interpretation. Mostly genius, not really socially, basically socially inept, but a genius.
Right.
And then there's the cocaine and all that other stuff that they don't really do very much with here. But genius nevertheless. This is an interesting scene here. With Holmes showing up here at this time, this really put a wrench into Sir Evans, what he's about to try to do.
Wait, do they ever explain what the purpose was of these voice recordings being made in England? And
he's
then
there to pick up the tape.
Right. But did they ever explain why they produce these things in England and then transport them to Germany to broadcast from Germany? Like, why don't they just produce them in Germany is my question.
They do produce them in Germany.
What?
They produce them in Germany. They get a recording.
No.
The recording.
The recording itself, the guy is recording them in England and then shipping the recording to Germany for it to go out over, to make it seem like it's coming from Germany. But why are they actually recording it in England? Why don't they just record it in Germany?
My understanding is that the reason why he's going after the plane here is to pick up the recording.
No, yes, I get that. I'm just trying to figure out why this is the plan that they've. Why is this the scheme the Nazis have concocted? Is what I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know if they explained it in the movie and I missed it or what.
Because they wanted everybody to think that it was being sourced in England, and it wasn't.
Oh, now I'm really confused.
Yeah, I don't know what y'all are talking about. I have no idea.
I mean, it is unclear. I'll grant you that. It is unclear. I mean, why didn't they just, why didn't they just broadcast it from Germany?
No, they are broadcasting it from Germany.
So these guys are putting this together and then sending it back to Germany?
It's being, yes, they're recording it in England, and then they're shipping the recording to Germany, and then it's going out in Germany to make the British assume that it's originating from Germany. The radio signal is yes, but they're trying to make it seem like the actual
But
broadcast.
they're actually making all this stuff happen, and they want it to happen exactly at the same time. They want the radio version to happen exactly at the same time as the crime is being committed.
All true. It just seems like they're going to great lengths with all this subterfuge, is what I'm trying to say. Because otherwise, they could just be like, "All right, we're gonna blow up this train." Okay, just fire up the radio in Germany and have our broadcaster just say, "Oh, your train's blowing up." But instead, the Nazis are bending over backwards to pre-record these things well in advance of the crime that they're also plotting, and then physically bringing that recording to Germany to make the Brits think
I
it's
think that
all
the
coming
the cell phone service wasn't good back then.
right. But it just seems like they're bending over backwards with an overly complicated scheme, and I'm trying to understand.
They have to be in England to make whatever happen. So
Okay.
Got that?
they want it to happen almost exactly at the same time as it's being broadcast.
I got that. Again, the easier way was just commit the plan or the crime and then simply broadcast it traditionally from Germany simultaneously. That's the easy way. But they're bending over backwards with pre-planning and a bunch of different moving parts of getting um a a, a recording from England. Like it's. Do you not see how insane that is? I mean,
it does feel that way.
You're making it so much more difficult for yourself.
But I'm getting lost in the fact that everything that you can actually broadcast from Germany into England, like literally do that broadcast. Like, would people actually be able to hear that?
I'm sure there's a way
that far away.
Well, yeah, I'm sure.
Like, I mean, I can't hear stations in like Connecticut. I can't hear those stations.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it's broadcast from Germany, like, I don't think people would hear it. I think it needs to be broadcast in England in order for people to hear it.
Okay. Keep talking. I think I know the answer.
Right. I'm kind of with Eric on this. I think it's a little bit redonkulous.
They have to broadcast it in England, and they have to do it at the same time as something's happening.
No, you got it backwards of what they're doing in the movie. They're doing the opposite. The whole reason Sherlock was analyzing his spectrometer or whatever is because they're assuming the radio broadcasts are coming out of Germany. But he was able to determine that it was a pre-recorded thing, which meant this wasn't an actual announcer in Germany, that these were actually being pre-taped in England. That's why he was comparing the Beethoven, because he determined due to the frequencies, these are actually British recordings that are like coming back to us from Germany, making us think it's sourced out of Germany. That was like the whole purpose of what he was doing at the beginning.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Essentially, like, it really doesn't explain the airplane, like, at all.
Yeah,
like why?
Yeah, and
what were they getting on the airplane?
And they could listen if they're on ham radio frequencies, which did exist.
But they weren't. But Eric, like, the normal person wasn't listening to ham radio. They were listening to the radio.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if it was normal or not in the 40s, because I honestly don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
They were listening to regular radio, terrestrial radio.
Eric's doing the research. I can hear it. It sounds like a cutscene from War Games.
Well, because again, if we grant that, then it like destroys the whole plot of the movie. He's
actually right there. I'm just going to say, I'm going to stick up for my podcast partner and say he's right. So this morning I woke up and it was very early. It was about 7:30. I had a plan, mapped out. What are the plans? Cut the grass, watch this episode, and so I ordered Domino's. They get it at the house at about 11 o'clock. They have these tater tots that are covered with stuff that you like to eat. And so I was eating those, and then I went to the bedroom and I fell asleep, and I woke up at approximately half an hour before we started recording this podcast.
Okay.
And all right, but the thing is that we spend so much time before the podcast is recording, doing chit chat off air, that I was able to watch this whole episode with the subtitles.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so I did it. I did it.
By the way, so Eric, you were confused about this. This is where I get confused. Is because the cabbie comes in and said, "No, they're coming to the south."
Oh yeah.
So they all go to the south, and everybody's confused when they say that it wasn't the north coast.
Right. Yeah.
Like the cabbie said it was the south. Like, why is everybody confused? Like, this is where it goes off the rails for me.
Well,
because they said they sent military and materiel to the north.
right.
Like, well, we misled you guys, and it's like, well, the cabbie came in and said it was the south. So shouldn't we have sent military and materiel to the south?
Hold on.
And it's like, I don't understand this.
It's like I'm taking crazy pills now.
No, but this is nuts.
No, because in the movie, when they were still in the war room, they heard the most recent broadcast that was coming from Nazi radio, and they said, "Get ready, because we're gonna hit you all in the north." And so all the advisors in the room were like, "Oh, we gotta get everything and send it to the north."
Right, exactly.
But then Sherlock was the only one who was like, "Wait a second, I think this is a deception. They're really gonna be in the south."
No. The cabbie comes in, and he says, "No, the south." And so I don't understand, like, how anybody could be confused here that it's definitely the south.
I don't remember the cabbie. That's like throwing a wrench in all my recollections. I just thought it was Sherlock who was the one who was like, "No, this is a deception. We need to put everything in the south. They're trying to draw us to the north."
No. The cabbie came in and said, "No, it's not the north. It's the south."
Huh.
That what's his face was going down to the south, not the north.
Now, how did the cabbie know?
Oh, typical Nazis. Oh, because he followed Meade.
Oh, okay. So now I'm confused as to why we're confused.
No, we're confused. I'm confused because nobody should have thought that it was the north anymore, because the cabbie came in and said it was the south.
Oh, I think they didn't believe him. They were all skeptical.
So they didn't believe. Okay, I get it now. Then okay, so they didn't believe him, even though he trailed this asshole, right?
Right. No, I think that's literally what happened, I believe.
But Holmes went to the military leaders and said, "Don't listen to the inner council. They're stupid. Go to the south." Yeah, I guess that's what happened. Actually, we don't put people on trial in a burnt-out church. That's not what's happened. What you should do is just grab all of them and take them back to jail. Having this conversation here is the reason for somebody's death.
Yeah. Actually, take them all in the back and hang them off of trees. That's how we should do justice in the 1930s.
So Josh, going back to radio frequencies.
Oh God!
So while of course AM was the standard, from the beginning.
Oh God, we're really breaking this down right now. This is the end of the movie, dude.
Oh, shortwave radio also existed, and shortwave radio is the kind that can go around the world or around a country, and because of the war and wartime, shortwave radio was utilized by federal governments so that they could get national broadcasts out. So it became a thing because of the war to use shortwave radio
Right.
for national radio
But we
services.
saw pictures of people listening just to their radios. Those were not short
Yes,
wave radios.
yes, and I'm saying the standard radios would carry the AM signals and the shortwave signals. I'm saying that otherwise it wouldn't work. You know what I'm
I
saying?
don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm telling you, because of the war, they wanted to have like a national radio service that everyone in the whole country could tune into simultaneously. Therefore, there had to be radios with shortwave. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
Felt bad
Because how could people listen to the national broadcasts if they didn't have radios?
I felt bad that I was drinking during this podcast, and then it turned.
No, but you see what I'm saying, though?
It turned into like the Radio Shack podcast, and I'm like,
No, what I'm saying is the technology literally existed because of wartime.
I know the technology existed. I mean, I don't know of any radio that carries shortwave when it's just a regular radio.
No, back then they did. They don't now. They did back then specifically because of the wartime.
All right, I'll buy in.
I get it.
I'll buy in.
We don't have shortwave anymore. I get it. But during that time, it was. And if you go back, and I haven't had an old radio lately, but when you look at the old knobs, you see you know how our cars when we were younger, the old-fashioned one with the little orange dealie, it had like AM on the top and FM on the bottom, right?
Right.
Remember the little dial? If you look at those old-timey radios, you'll see they have more than two. They have like sometimes 4 or 5 different bands that they can switch between.
All right. That aside, okay? That aside, why did Sir Evan just easily just say no? I mean, he's caught, so he's like
proud.
The whole thing is really kind of dumb. He did bring him in. If he didn't bring in Sherlock Holmes, they could have probably been successful.
Oh yes, I mean yes, that seems obvious.
I mean, it's kind of stupid. Like, and Watson has no reaction to this, even though Watson said he went to school with this guy.
I told you he's got nothing to do in this except for
little plastic surgery.
Yeah, as we would say in the Murder, She Wrote community, he's Seth Hazlitt. He's Seth Hazlitt.
But speaking of bending over backwards to make your cockamamie plan even more convoluted, like I accept that he's the mole, but what's crazy is that he's been a plant for like 20 years.
Yeah, I know that is nuts.
Purpose. That's what's insane.
Well, Eric, the Germans plan in advance.
Yeah. And also, Eric, don't ever say bending backwards and cockamamie in the same sentence again. Yeah, the Germans do plan in advance. It's German engineering.
Oh, and Sherlock Holmes, and Sherlock Holmes noticed that his scar was only 20 years old.
Like, the Nazis put incredible effort and pre-planning into this just to be able to scare people. Like
the Nazis put this guy into again. He could have been just a spy, or whatever, like from World War I, and just kind of stayed there. I mean, I guess I can buy that, but
like in the United States, they accidentally scared everyone when they broadcast War of the Worlds, the reenactment on the radio. That costed $30 to produce, but this Nazi scheme costed untold amount of time and money and blood to pull off the same thing.
The council was deliberately misinformed about moving the defense forces.
You're trying to save your face.
I mean, he tried to save it with the scar.
Model airplanes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
I'm just kidding. It's fun to watch.
They're hurricanes.
No, actually, I really do like that set of the broken down cathedral or church or whatever. And I'm wondering is that like a stock ruined church that they just bring out?
Actually, the funny thing is that the picture that they had earlier, they use it several times in Sherlock Holmes.
I was gonna say it seems like it'd be so much trouble to recreate this set like for the first time. This must have been reused 1,000 times.
I've seen it in video games.
That's where they got it.
Oh no! Honestly, a lot of video games came to my mind when I saw this set. But I imagine again because they are the studio behind the Universal Monster Pictures, this was probably like used for like some Dracula movie or something.
is nobody watching anybody here? I mean, this is the worst
Eyeballs.
police action I've ever seen.
He looks like Molina, Alfred Molina, Mr. Gomez.
Peters are here. 2 days.
Look out!
Still fresh. Still fresh.
Doc Ock in the Spider-Man movies.
So she died unnecessarily there.
He's gonna jump out.
That's what they should have done in the first place.
Bang! And he goes down just like Frankenstein, by the way. No, he does.
No,
that's literally what the scene of Frankenstein falling into the fire. That's what it looks like.
No, I believe you. It's just funny the tie-ins to the Monster Universe.
By the way, in his last bow, which is what this is based on, there is a character named Heinrich von Bork. Whatever. Okay, so that's how they connected the dots.
Okay, yay! Oh, that's great.
Yay! Gosh. They connected the dots there.
How do you know all that? How do you remember all that? Is it from childhood memories? Really?
Yeah.
That's wild, though.
Yeah, I'm afraid. Listen, I mean, you guys listen to the memory cheats, right? When I did that podcast 400 years ago.
Yeah, but that's Doctor Who. I mean, do you remember do you have this child photographic memory of Magnum PI and other?
No. I wasn't interested in Magnum PI, but I watched these movies 1,000 times.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even joking. My dad and I, God bless him, God bless his soul. He's been gone 3 years, but my dad and I watched these movies over and over again. Oh, I love this speech. There's an east wind coming, all the same. I love this speech. It's just so beautiful, and they tend to these Sherlock Holmes movies tended to end with speeches like this when they were in the wartime.
I like this speech, except it sounds like a speech you would have at the beginning of the war, not the middle of the war. That's the only thing.
No, Eric. The east wind. The east wind was from the Soviet Union.
Oh, okay. I thought they were talking about Germany in the east, and I didn't think they were talking about Japan in the east because that'd be too much.
But there's hints of that this ain't over yet. That there's plenty to go here.
Well, that's extremely perceptive and what's that other word?
Perspicacious?
No. Is it precognizant? No. Doesn't prepubescent? No.
The observe.
Prescient. That's very prescient. If that's the case, I didn't even think. I mean, that's okay.
You're not giving, not lending when you buy war stamps.
Isn't that great?
Man.
Because that's what they showed in the theater, and you could buy. I think you could buy bonds in the theater, war bonds.
I didn't live in 1940, whatever. I think.
What?
Oh, well, I did. I mean, it was a wild time.
But there's something about the rah-rah, allies that maybe I equate it to today when it's like America, fuck yeah.
Yeah, don't try. So
don't equate it with that.
We haven't had a reason to get together in a long time.
Okay.
As a country.
But yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I was not a huge fan of this movie at all. And I know what you're thinking, Josh. Well, you just watched it in half an hour ago. Blah, blah. But still, the message that this film brought was clear to me. And I'm just kind of like, you're a propaganda film. I just that's what I feel.
It sure was. I don't disagree.
If nowadays, if they made a Marvel movie and it was like, fuck everything USA, and they haven't done that. Captain America would be a perfect vehicle. But
I mean, to be fair, you're in World War II.
I agree, and it was,
and you know what? The Nazis were fucking scary.
Yeah,
and there is reason to believe that we would have lived in a world like Man in the High Castle versus the world that we ended up with.
Mm-hmm. See, I don't know where to draw the line between what Sean's talking about and then other forms of quote unquote propaganda films, because I get what Sean's saying. what the equivalent would be in modern times, with a hard pro whatever message, pro nationalism. Okay, but what about when you watch something like the original Star Wars? Couldn't someone just watch that and go, yeah, nice special effects, groundbreaking, but this is a propaganda movie?
That's not a propaganda movie. That's nonsense.
There's clearly Nazis in the movie, space Nazis, very clearly.
Oh God. I guess.
You can't say they're not space Nazis.
They wear black. They're authoritarian.
They're stormtroopers.
This is a lot more on the nose.
They're
than that.
literally called stormtroopers.
I mean, you could say that about the Daleks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is more on the nose.
You could say about the Daleks, but Star Wars is way more on the nose than Daleks and Doctor Who.
You think so?
Again, they're called stormtroopers. Literally. Literally. There's no nuance there.
I don't think.
If there's a podcast and Eric doesn't say literally, I don't want to listen to it.
There's that. How could you get any more lack of nuance than they're literally called?
No, I mean, again, it depends on what boogeyman we're talking about, right? So, in 1942, the boogeyman was the Nazis, and they were for real. Maybe in the mid 70s, the boogeyman was Brezhnev.
No, what I'm saying is, yes, we all get that there's propaganda movies and movies that have an agenda, but I think different movies handle it differently. Is what I'm actually trying to say. Is that something with Star Wars or other high-minded films? There's some nuance to the message, whereas in other things it's completely straightforward.
Yeah, so I don't consider this movie having any nuance at all. It's really in your face.
Because actually Casablanca, not to go back to that, but
there was nuance to that.
There was nuance, yet it was in every possible way about the conflict. But at the same time, it wasn't saying go out and buy war bonds today.
Well, the movie wasn't saying that. Every movie had that at the end.
No, I know. I meant that as a metaphor. Go buy war bonds. Because again, some movies are just absolutely, even if they don't, forget about the text that says buy war bonds. There's so many propaganda films that in essence, that's all they're saying. Like throughout, that's the message pounding. Whereas Casablanca, it's not necessarily the message underlying everything.
Yeah.
It's not, but it's also more nuanced in Casablanca versus
Yes, which is what I'm saying. It is more nuanced as well in Casablanca.
Yeah, for here, it's in your face.
Yes.
It's really just...
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, I mean, the idea is that, we're going to get our smartest people to help us with, against the enemy. And Sherlock Holmes is the smartest human being on the planet in 1942, even though he's supposed to be from the 1880s and 1890s, but who cares?
He's timeless, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what they told us up front.
Right, exactly. Woo!
Well, that's good. Hey, you know what? Actually, I'm really thrilled that you guys... the greatest thing about having you guys on here and talking through these things is I think about things I wasn't thinking about before. And you have such a great knowledge of how movies from all eras, how they get presented. So it's definitely a different perspective.
All right.
I don't think I'm going to see a better directed film in Sherlock Holmes than that one.
All right.
It's probably the best directed film out of all of them. But as we go through more of these, we're gonna see, like, if you're looking for logic in some of these, it's just gonna fall down in its face.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that you're just gonna be like, what? No, no. So I mean, it's not really the purpose. I mean, it's an hour of entertainment. That's it. And we're talking about a movie that's 80 years old now.
Oh my gosh, fun fact.
Oh, here we go.
So I guess this kind of explains why I was confused about why was this whole scheme by the Nazis so convoluted. I didn't know this is based on a true story. I didn't know that this Sherlock Holmes story was based on actual happenings that actually happened.
I didn't know that either.
And so there was actually an American-born guy in England who was broadcasting this Nazi propaganda in the UK, and he was actually hanged for treason in 1946 in the UK. Oh, and something he did something else besides the radio propaganda.
Really? I mean,
So I just want to say,
they didn't base it on that, did they?
yeah, no,
This is 1942.
His name was, I know, but he was hanged
hanged.
Sir. After the fact, after he was tried after the war. But he was doing this during the war. He was broadcasting Nazi propaganda in the UK.
But surely the writers of this didn't know about that in 1942.
I mean, they know about the broadcast. They know about the broadcast. The broadcasts were
Or
happening.
1941 when this.
So there was real Nazi propaganda radio broadcasts during the war, and it was done by this guy named William Joyce, who was tried for that crime and other crimes that he committed in the UK, and he was hanged in 1946.
Wow.
So we were doing a podcast on Bonnie and Clyde on Thursday night, and Eric just loved bringing up true facts about Bonnie and Clyde in real life. He did the same thing.
That's Eric's role. He's the true fact guy.
Yeah. In real life, they didn't do that. They did this.
I'm just saying, this really brings it into a new light now that I realize this was actually.
I mean.
Oh no, it doesn't.
The facts are the facts, and Eric just generally brings them in. I mean, he's been doing that. For Shaken Not Stirred, he did that too. True fact. Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, true fact. I found out that so and so happened to so and so. Okay, all right.
I just want you guys to know, inside baseball listeners, that these are the same two guys who shit on me for prepping.
Well, the fact that you prepped for 12 hours on it, yeah. I mean, I guess, including the bump and everything else that needed to be done. Yeah, but
or we log into the app that we're using to podcast, and we hear just like radio going.
Something about streaming. I don't know what it was. It was.
I thought my mic was muted.
Like, where is he? I don't know where he is.
It wasn't.
No,
I'm sorry, I had to hear that.
Anyway, so I guess we can close out the show, right? At this point.
Do we do ratings on this? I'm obsessed with ratings.
Oh yeah.
oh boy.
How are we gonna rate this? Like, Eric, you got to come up with something, or Sean. I'm the host, so you guys have to come up with the rating.
Thinking of that growth on the heroine's cheek, the skin tag on her cheek.
All right, so how many skin tags on Kitty's cheek do you guys give this film?
Out of how many?
5, please. I'll be confused. I'll need a table roll.
Okay. A table roll.
A slide rule, sorry. A slide rule.
Or a table roll, doesn't matter. Either one.
A slide rule?
Okay. I'll need a slide rule if we do something other than 5 to figure out my rating.
All right, 5. Out of 5, how many skin tags on Kitty's face are you guys giving this? We'll start with you, Sean.
Okay. I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5.
2.5 skin tags?
I'm going to... Yeah, I'm a big disclaimer here. I watched it while we were doing our
pre-show planning.
Pre-show planning, which for some of us takes an hour and a half.
I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, we just got on and started the movie, so.
And I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. 2.5. That's more than acceptable.
The heavy-handedness of it got to me more than like the detectiveness of it. Like, there should have been more detective work, and like all we got to was your heels digging into the carpet a little bit too much. And he must have been stabbed by somebody who's right-handed and 6 feet 4 inches tall, and yeah. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna cut it in half.
Okay.
Because I realize the quaintness of this, and I kind of appreciate it. I think it's kind of cool, and it looks great on Blu-ray. By the way,
it does.
But I also that's it. All right,
Eric. What? How many skin tags on Kitty's face are you giving this?
I am actually also giving it 2.5, and my reasons for it are partially the same as what Sean said. although I'm not too bummed by the propaganda part, but when it comes to the detectiveness and the actual structure of the mystery itself, like visually and production wise, all that stuff is great as far as I'm concerned. This movie and the acting, etc. But on paper, like the screenplay, the mechanics of the quote unquote mystery. So, like what Sean just said, like the times when Sherlock uses his super mental abilities is the weird stuff about the heels and the knife and stuff like that, which is they seem like weird tricks that his character is doing just to show off, or not show off, well, to show off and say, aha, I have real skills. But when it comes to the actual mechanics of the mystery
Yeah.
of the actual mystery on paper, it's all the big revelations like that Holmes came up with. Like it seemed like the obvious thing to me in real life. So in other words, that was not genius thinking. Like I knew instantly it's someone in the room. You know, it's I know it's the South, not the North. You know,
But you didn't know who it was.
yeah, because the movie didn't tell me. But I'm just
No, you didn't figure it out. You didn't figure it out.
you're right. I didn't, but then okay, fine. He does use his superpowers when he can tell a scar is only 20 years
20
old
years
and
old.
not 40 years old. Okay, again, how am I going to do that? As
No, but it's not just that. It's the following of the plane and everything. Like the fact that he decided to go to Seven Oaks and follow the plane and all this other stuff.
okay.
Like he figured out who it was long before he.
Well, I think he had the benefit of the script, which I didn't.
Well, they always have the benefit of the script.
I know. I meant that figuratively. I mean, he didn't just show up and what am I supposed to say? What's going to happen? What's going on? Who are you?
Basil Rathbone really was Sherlock Holmes.
Why are you filming me? No. What's a movie camera? No, it's just the big revelations that he was, you know, that's why he was there, why they brought him to the think tank. I got those big revelations myself in 10 seconds. No, not the identity of the killer, but just the big things where the other suits were just like, huh? What? We have no idea. We know nothing. So it was just really weird as a mystery detective movie, I think. If you strip away, you know, the iconic character and everything else, it was just really weird.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. There is no detective work done in this. And I know that Eric knows great detective work because I recently did a podcast with him in which we talked about Columbo, which is awesome detective work. And I don't want to, you know, shit on your favorite detective, Josh, but this one just did not. It just didn't move me. I'm so sorry.
That's fair. No. Don't be sorry. It's fair. Everything that you guys have said have made me think about this. But I will tell you. I will tell you. First of all, I'm going to give it 3.5 skin tags
Okay.
on Kitty's face. There are several things I love about this movie. Forget about the fact that we're talking about Sherlock Holmes here. Okay,
Okay.
let's just
All
talk about it as if it's just a movie. All right. I love the direction of this movie. It's one of the best directed movies of this era that I've ever seen. It's just atmosphere. It just you felt it all along. It's very difficult to actually feel it while you're on the podcast and you're not watching this in the dark, which is the way I used to watch these. Okay.
Mhm.
The ascension of Kitty as just a normal person, who is inevitably the hero of this thing, was very new at that time, and I just thought that her character's arc was beautiful. It was really well done, well acted, and well done. Lastly, I think if you can get past the fact that it's convoluted and all this other stuff, again, I'm not looking for something that has to be completely. I'm looking at it more from a 1942 audience versus a 2023 audience. Okay.
Mm.
Obviously, it doesn't really work from a 2023 audience perspective. But when I first saw this, it scared me to death. Again, I was 13 or 14 or whatever it was. But we saw the evil nature of the Nazis. And if I'm watching this in a 1942 theater, I'm excited. I'm excited about the conclusion of this, and
Okay.
so like from all those perspectives, I think from a Sherlock Holmes standpoint, it's probably one of the better movies of the series. And again, if you accept the fact that it's propaganda, yes, it's a product of its time, then I just see it as something I can watch over and over again. I'll probably say that about all of them, unfortunately.
Actually, I would watch this again. And that's not, it's actually very charming and it's very quaint, and it's not a reason that you like this movie, Josh. I don't
Yeah,
think.
you know what? At the end of the day, like I don't generally expect when we do these movies, I don't generally expect that you guys are gonna love in each and every one of them. Again, I have more my love for these movies is more nostalgia than anything else. Um, in fact, when my father died, I basically just started watching these on a nightly basis for many days after his death. It just is a thing with my dad. So hearing your perspective is actually helpful to know about the how, is it just the style of the film? Because for me, it's like it has nothing to do with that. Like it's more nostalgia than anything else for me.
Right.
Versus like watching Doctor Who, or like watching Mind Warp or something and saying that's crap. I've never seen such worse Doctor Who. It's like I can be a little bit more, shall we say, um,
Forgiving.
for maybe like for Doctor Who, I certainly don't have to be forgiving. Like for this, I'm a lot more forgiving, as if it's part of my world. So hearing your perspective is, and I don't disagree with anything you guys said, by the way,
Yeah.
is just, and I'm going to come off in this series as, a fanboy, and so I admit that right off the bat that's what I'm going to be on.
Yeah, and especially because everything you just said is so heartfelt. No sarcasm. Hashtag. Um, you were. I don't want to come off as more of a point shitter right now, but here goes. Um, because you were talking about looking at this from a perspective of audiences in the 1940s. I just realized another reason why it's a little difficult for me personally to fully appreciate this film is because there's another popular 1942 film called Saboteur by Alfred Hitchcock, which I've seen a couple times in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually,
Mm-hmm.
it's, I guess you would call it also a propaganda film of the time. And it deals with like some undercover Nazis in the United States plotting something, except that movie's really thrilling. uh, and again, and so it's weird because it ticks the boxes of propaganda, yet at the same time, it's like it's 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 killer entertainment for 1942 at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not going to try to convince you that Alfred Hitchcock movies are better than
I'm just
these.
saying. I'm curious if you would enjoy that movie.
These are effing B movies at the end of the day.
Yes, understood completely. I'm just saying, but because I have Saboteur in my mind, it's sitting there, in the as I'm taking this in.
Yeah, no, I get it. I completely get it. And again, like, you're not nothing can take away from Alfred Hitchcock. Like, nothing can. It's very few things that can.
But it's still interesting to compare all these films because even though we've mentioned these and Casablanca, I actually haven't seen that many war adjacent films of the era.
Yeah, yeah.
Aside from the ones that literally have soldiers in them.
And neither have I. Neither have I, quite honestly. So I mean, it's just it's valuable to hear it because it's a definite new perspective on it. And you guys have watched thousands of films, like way ahead of me in the number of films that you guys have seen versus I have. So it's very, very interesting. And I'm interested in the journey that we're going to take with these films, because it's gonna really show me, like, how good they really truly are versus how I perceive them. So I definitely invite your thoughts on it, because it's really interesting to me. If anything else, it's not going to change anything for me when it comes to the films, but at the same time, it's interesting, and I'm learning a lot. So appreciate that.
Whew, thank you. I was nervous.
All right. So with that, we'll close it out. So closing out the show today. This is Josh,
This is Eric.
And this is Sean.
and we'll see you next time on the 7% Solution. And until next time,
Even if you're a Nazi masquerading as a Brit,
Don't panic.
oh yeah. Well, I'm glad we got in the can. I forgot to mention
Oh, here we go.
all the accents were throwing me, but I guess that was of the times. I mean, for movies.
what's interesting is that most of these actors, and I probably should save this for a podcast, but most of these actors were British actors in Hollywood.
Right.
Like basically, they've all sort of come over, and they're all like a family almost. Like I've listened to, there was an actress who was in the final movie, Dressed to Kill. Her name is Patricia Morrison, and she lived to about 103. So there's actually a YouTube video about how she described how everybody in the party, in what do you call it, company, everybody in the company were really close friends, and they used to get together and stuff like that, and they were the Brits in Hollywood movies.
Yeah. So I didn't know that. That's interesting. Good to know. And it almost sounds like it's almost like a Christopher Guest situation, where Christopher Guest has like his band of actors that he works over and over again, and they're kind of family, and they're in all these different movies, but it's kind of the same characters or actors over and over again.
And what's interesting is as we go through the movies, you're going to recognize like Evelyn Ankers, who was in this one. She'll be in another one later. Like a bunch of these guys are in several of the movies.
Yeah, and it's funny. I wouldn't have assumed they were all Brits. I was thinking, oh, it's like an American production. That's why everyone sounds off. But the fact that they were Brits, I guess the thing is, they're all doing,
most of them are. They're
all doing what was called the Mid-Atlantic transatlantic accent, and that's
the Middle Earth.
No. No, they're doing the transatlantic thing that was popular in the day. So that's why it's so funny that even though they're Brits and they could do a more genuine accent, they're doing what was the fad in the days.
Yeah, it's interesting because Patricia Morrison, the woman I was talking about, who lived to 103 or whatever, and she's on YouTube. She's not a Brit. She's from like New York, but she put on a British accent for the movie. So there's a few of those. There's a few of those folks, but a lot of them are really. I mean, you're gonna hear like Scottish accents and Irish accents and stuff like that. They'll come out.
I think Kitty was supposed to be using a Cockney accent, and that's
the
queerest Cockney accent I've ever heard.
I'm not sure Evelyn Ankers is a Brit. I don't know. I have to go look that up.
Almost there.
I mean, actually, Basil Rathbone is South African. He's not Brit. He was born in South Africa.
Well, that would account for the hair.
Nigel Bruce is a legit English actor.
Evelyn Ankers was born in Chile to English parents.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's kind of like Anya Taylor-Joy being born in Argentina to British parents.
Oh, it's really interesting.
There you go with the true facts from Eric.
Woo! All right.
You know, Bonnie and Clyde in real life, they didn't get arrested like that, and their brother had to. You know, in true life,
I didn't even talk about the death scene, which was different in real life. But
you're going to go on about it now.
But I spared you. I didn't even bring that up, even though I had it ready.
Okay.